Salutations, people of the internet. Welcome to the database. A short video here this time around, and this video is something interesting that I wanted to do. So I own all three current generation video game consoles, and thus I managed to try out a few batch of games from different platforms. The controls and how they feel when they play these games are, in my eyes, one of the most important parts of a video game experience. Right at the comfort at the palm of your hands, and this video I'll be taking a look at all three primary controllers for the current generation of consoles. Now, one thing to note, for the sake of even playing field, I'll be looking over the Nintendo Switch's Pro Controller and not the Joy-Cons. We're cool with that? Cool. Whether you got the Xbox Series X or S, at the end of the day, they both share the same controller layout. When comparing to the Xbox One controller, you can say it looks like a carbon copy of that controller, but there are some noticeable differences. Microsoft decided to change the D-pad in favor of the D-pad that can be pushed down in all directions. There is no subtle groove between the buttons and the Xbox home button, and there are added new buttons in between the view and menu buttons. The share button, an easier way to share the latest gameplay to your friends or social media and on the Xbox friends list. The build quality is just as equal to the Xbox One, but only different in status, making it stand out a bit. The triggers on the Xbox One controller have a glossy finish, easy to leave fingerprints, whereas the Xbox Series version has its triggers and shoulder buttons and the controller grip have this textured matted feel to them. It's very rubbery and makes it a lot better than the last generation controller. I could feel my hands and fingers stayed attached to the controller. No worries of the controller slipping off from my sweat anymore. They even kept the matted texture on the analog sticks, which is also nice. Overall, this was a nice improvement for the Xbox Series controllers. Is it worth an additional $60 to buy an extra controller for? Probably not, because the Xbox One controllers can also connect to the Xbox Series of consoles. So it's all up to you, preference on this one. For me, I'll just stick with the option of having a last generation controller on standby. The Sony PlayStation DualSense controller. Gone are the days of the DualShock. In are the newest innovations of Sony's game controllers with the goal of heightening the sense during gameplay. This can be seen in the form of the DualSense's haptic feedback vibration and the all-new adaptive triggers. With these triggers, these are activated during certain sections of the game. I'll use this rocket ship section from Astro's Playroom as an example. So in this section, you would feel added pressure on the controllers when pressed down, simulating the amount of pressure added like a gas pedal. With the adaptive triggers come the built-in haptic feedback. This gives you different levels of vibration that gives you the feel of being part of the game. The different levels of feedback are mostly noticeable in the PS5 games, but for many PS4 games that are backwards compatible, the vibration feels quieter. The touchpad that was introduced during the PS4's time is now the same color as the primary controller shell around it, and the grips are very wide and feel just right in my big sized hands. While the buttons look muted in color, PlayStation owners are immediately familiar with the same buttons they've been using since the first PlayStation in '95. The muted button colors and the initial white and black accents to the controller came with. It's a nice change of pace compared to the PlayStation's constant use of black for most consoles, though there are different options for other colors including black if you prefer those over white. I'm not the one to judge, although the white controller can be the guilty culprit for dirt spots during long gameplay sessions. Finally, the Nintendo Switch's Pro Controller. Now, for some people, the Joy-Con is the main controller for the Switch, with the Pro Controller being an additional accessory that you can buy separately. But for me, I see both controllers on equal footing in terms of what they offer. Whenever I have the Switch on tabletop mode or inserted in the Switch's dock, I use the Pro Controller. When I want to do multiplayer or for games like Super Mario Odyssey and Galaxy, to emulate the style of motion controls, I use the Joy-Con. For now, for the sake of this comparison, I'll be focusing on the Pro Controller only. The Joy-Cons are fine, but to sum things up in short, they are a gimmick at the end of the day. While it is tinier than the Xbox and PlayStation controllers, the Switch Pro Controller still feels premium for Nintendo standards. Unlike the Xbox and the PlayStation controller, the Switch uses an analog trigger for quick inputs, which feels right at home for many games that require fast inputs like Smash Ultimate. And the buttons are larger than the ones on the Joy-Cons and feel more responsive than that one. The grips, while small, have that rubbery feel that's just right on the hands. And with hands that are larger than mine, this too feels just right. Hell, all the controllers in this video feel just right in my giant hands, and I'm only stating the differences. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned with all the controllers was its battery life. If you want wireless play in the Xbox Series controller still takes two AA batteries. Why? It's 2022. And we're still seeing controllers use batteries. The only controllers I should be seeing using batteries are the Wiimotes and the GameCube's Wavebird. At least the PlayStation and Switch controllers are rechargeable. What's Microsoft's excuse? Speaking of the PlayStation, while it is rechargeable, it has the worst battery life out of the three. A full charge lasting between 10 to 12 hours depending on the game you play. The Switch Pro controller, 40 f***ing hours of full charge. 40. What the f***, Sony? Finally, let's talk about the custom controllers that you can get that will leave you the same or better impression when compared to the main Pro controllers. I know Xbox has their own website where consumers can customize what set of colors do they want for their triggers, face buttons, etc. All within a website called Design Lab. Link to that in the description if you want to check it out. I won't be talking about upgraded versions of the Xbox and PlayStation controllers because those versions have yet to come out as of this video. Also, the Nintendo Switch doesn't seem to be upgrading their controllers anytime soon, despite what the media claims about it. Sony's DualSense controllers come in a variety of simple colors, pink, purple, light blue, and black, all to match the additional new colored removable cover plates for the console, so you can have it match your controller or mix and match colors the way you want it. And that's it. The battery life is still shit though, but that's it. Now, Nintendo's variety of Pro controllers is an interesting one. I was going to include the third-party ones on this channel, but that would mitigate the purpose of this video, and it could be a save for another topic for another time. Instead, the closest I could find in terms of colorful variants are the Xenoblade and Smash Bros versions of the Pro controllers. These operate the same as the original, with just added difference of aesthetic. I want to get the Smash Bros one because I'm a big fan of Smash, but I worry that the paint on the controller would chip off over time. Overall, not bad. If I were to rank these from 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, number 3 is the Xbox Series controller, and number 2 and number 1 are very hard for me to choose. Despite what I said about the DualSense's piss poor battery life, I still enjoy holding on to this controller for long sessions. Even when the analog sticks for both controllers are different, the DualSense feels so right symmetrically. The Switch Pro controller is the best Pro controller Nintendo has ever made. They did this a few times with the Wii and Wii U era, but I know they perfected it with this generation. Every button feels so satisfying to press, and it's compact where you can take it with you on the go. However, in terms of immersiveness, where you feel like you're living in a game experience, you have to give that one to the DualSense controller. The adapted triggers are beyond next level in video game immersion. Each press feels like you're controlling the vehicle your character is piloting, and the haptic feedback perfectly go hand in hand with the triggers, like Dual Link PB&J. So yeah, number 2 is the Switch Pro controller, and number 1 is the PlayStation's DualSense controller. And those are my takes on the 3 current generation controllers. Which controller you think is the best one? Let me know down in the comments. Thumbs up the video if you like it, subscribe to the database, and follow me on social media as seen here. This is Christopher James, signing off, and I'll see you guys next time. And yeah, I did change my name. I think it sounds cooler.